Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the Commission, especially any non-members present, and welcome to the special meeting of Breckland's Overview and Scrutiny Commission on the 16th of May, starting at 2 o'clock. Can I first of all extend a special welcome to Councillor Scott Hussey, who's a new member of the Commission, and welcome to you, and I hope you find this in future sessions enjoyable and also productive and useful. Thank you. Before we start and go into the main part of the agenda, I would say that this particular topic was suggested some while ago by the Vice Chairman of the Commission, William Nunn, and we know that a lot more has moved on. We hope to have even more information and scope of devolution and local government reorganisation. We did have, as you know, a special full council on the 20th of March, and we had quite a wide-ranging debate about local government reorganisation, and we had some robust expressions held at different points of view. But as far as the Scrutiny Committee is concerned, we operate within a challenging but constructive atmosphere, and I hope that we will generate at least as much light rather than heat today. And we all want the best for our residents. We know that we're constrained by the national timetable that the government's laid down for those in the priority devolution list area. And as I said, we will do obviously our best to keep residents involved and informed, and businesses, and support officers in this this challenging time. So with that, that includes my remarks at the moment, and hope that today can be part of the public engagement process. We'll start on the official part of the agenda. Ruth, if you can read out the names of any apologies for absence and to note substitute members. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. We have received apologies from Councillor Nunn, Councillor Blackburn, Councillor Bowes, Councillor Eagle, Councillor Wickerson and Councillor Wilkinson, and we have Councillor Atwill as substitute for Councillor Wickerson and Councillor Bambridge as substitute for Councillor Bowes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have no urgent business to declare. Are there any declarations of interest members have to declare relevant to the agenda today? Thank you. Can't see any. Item 4 is our main topic about devolution, particularly reorganisation, devolution, local government reorganisation, to brief and update members on the current situation. I hope members have read the very full paper that Councillor Borrett and Andrew Holsworth have sent round. I'm sure you've got lots of further questions for them, some of which they may well answer in their presentation. So I'd now like to welcome and invite Councillor Borrett and the team to present the report to us and update the Commission, and then take questions accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. For the record, I'm Bill Borrett. I'm the Cabinet Member for Local Government Reorganisation and Devolution here at Breckland Council. And I just ask the rest of the team to introduce themselves as well, please. Oh, yes.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Chair. So I'm Andrew Holsworth. I'm one of the Assistant Directors here at Breckland, and I've been taking an active interest in our LGR work.
Hi everyone, I'm Jack Fulham. I'm Senior Economic Policy Officer here at Breckland, and like Andrew, I've also been involved in the LGR work here at Breckland.
Right, we're back on. Right, so we're going to do a presentation. Andrew's going to talk through some of the technical stuff and how we've got to get here. I'm going to talk a little bit about the effects to Breckland, and then we will throw it open to members for discussion and scrutiny. So we got 4 bits. So we'll start with a recap of policy and our current approach. What we've been doing, building the best plan for the West of Norfolk, following on from the steer or instruction from the full council meeting. Then we'll talk a bit about the concerns and key policy considerations. and then, as I said, it'll be over to members. So, Andrew, would you like to start?
Yeah, thank you, Bill. And yeah, I guess as you already mentioned, Chair, so we did submit a report, so hopefully members are aware of some of the key points. We just wanted to just flag what we think is kind of most pertinent. And I think, as you mentioned as well in your introduction, Chair, this is a fairly fast-moving environment. So there's where things have changed since we've produced the paper, we'll just call out a few elements. But just to kind of make sure that everyone's kind of up to speed and on the same page in terms of what these policies mean and where we are currently at. And apologies, I know a lot of you know this sort of inside out, but just cover all bases. So just as a reminder of what we're fundamentally talking about. This government has stated its quite clear ambition that it would like to see all two-tier areas, that's areas that have a county and a district system like ourselves, ceased and moved to a unitary system, and that's effectively what local government reorganisation is about. There's a number of policy documents that the government have published to describe this, including their English devolution white paper, which sets out effectively there being a clear focus on efficiencies about this, but also, as described, some important policy elements from the government in terms of clarity, innovation, and service delivery. But it is the government's stated intention that the whole of the country will be moved to a unitary system of local government. Similarly, the government has stated through its aligned and overlapping ambition of devolution that it would like to see the whole country covered by what it describes as strategic authorities, which are effectively mayoral-led entities that cover a wider regional area, similar in types that you might be familiar with in areas like Greater Birmingham and Greater Manchester. And again, the government set out through its policy documents its desire to see that as a solution that covers the whole of the country. I'll come into timetable in a second, but just to point out that through this process, the government effectively created a fast-track system for a few areas where they volunteered to be kind of at the front of the pack in the vanguards, in what they call the DPP, or the Devolution Priority Programme. That applies very particularly to us, as the Norfolk and Suffolk County Councils requested and were supported in being part of that programme. There are a lot of sort of different dates and milestones on this. We just called out a few that I think are probably useful for OSC to keep in mind, but with the caveat that these things are to a degree fluid. But in effect, there are a few key steps on the proposed journey to both seeing LGR and devolution happen. The first one, as we've already mentioned, has passed, and that's that the government asked every single two-tier area and every single council within the two-tier area to submit what they described as an interim plan at the end of March. There was no prescription really about what that plan looked like, but it was effectively an opportunity for areas to state an intention and a direction of travel about how they would respond to the challenge of local government reorganisation. Looking forward, we are anticipating some key legislation and announcements from government over the summer, both through the English devolution bill and through the associated activity that's happening in the spending review. This will be, we think, quite important because it will help fill in a number of the current gaps we have in terms of understanding, particularly in terms of what might a strategic authority actually look like and the power set that it contains, and also what is the financial envelope that we're talking about, particularly for a new regional entity. Key in our minds at the moment, the government has set priority programme areas. So for us, this absolutely applies, a deadline of the 26th of September for submission of what they call a full proposal for local government reorganisation. We will come on to the detail of that in a sec, but that's effectively the next key milestone in front of us. Aligned, though, we are expecting over the summer and into the autumn there to be some formal decisions required, both at a national level in Westminster, but also a regional level at Norfolk and Suffolk County Councils, that will effectively formalise and agree what strategic authority will look like. And the further we get into this timetable, the slightly more subjective it gets, and TBCs apply, but the government have indicated they will be taking a decision on what to do with the LGR proposals in early 2026, and they have indicated that that will be a ministerial decision. Following from that, we anticipate on this timetable that there will be elections held in May, both for the new mayor for Norfolk and Suffolk, but also for what were postponed local elections, so in our context, those of Norfolk County Council particularly. And then going a little further into the future, May 27 is when the proposed elections to the shadow unitary authorities take place, which in essence there is a year whilst both the new councils exist and the old predecessor councils exist, and by 2028 predecessor councils would have ceased and we would be in that new unitary structure. But to underline, the further you get through that, the more subject it is to a degree of change, and there are a lot of things to happen before there. Quick recap. Sorry, I see.
Can we ask questions?
I think perhaps if we could wait till we've really got to the end of that, if you don't mind, Gordon. Thank you.
There is if it's all right with you, we'll collect a load of questions at the end.
There's a big question in that last.
Okay. Yes, I suspect there probably will be a few as we as we go through. But so as a quick recap in terms of what that interim plan phase looked like in Norfolk. So I appreciate all members were here for the debate or most members are here for the debate in the chamber. So you will be aware that 6 of the district councils in Norfolk agreed a joint position in terms of supporting a vision for a 3 unitary solution in Norfolk, based broadly on an east-west and Greater Norwich split. We can come to the detail of this if it's helpful, but effectively that was built on a few key pillars, in that this would be the best solution to keep local government local, to support that accountability position, and as well to deliver the most effective financial solution over the longer term. That was supported by independent analysis and shared across all districts. South Norfolk Council came to a slightly different conclusion and submitted to the government a view of 2 unitaries being the kind of optimal for Norfolk, and the County Council confirms that its preferred solution would be either a 1 or a 2. We have, since that submission, received both some written and verbal feedback from the government, which we can elaborate on in further detail if it would be helpful. I would summarise that though as effectively being positive about a number of our assumptions and aspirations. The government have not, and we did not expect them to, but they have not provided any clear preference in terms of the models and options that have been put forward to them. That they were never going, or they were not likely to use it as a stage gate where they would rule things in and out. They're just providing very broad feedback and guidance about the kind of things they would like to see more of in terms of a full submission. So as we knew, they have encouraged us to do some further work in terms of how big services would run and operate, but fundamentally the feedback has not changed any of our baseline assumptions or aspirations for this. Just to talk briefly, because I suppose this is one of the things that is most important, and hopefully one of the things where we can have a bit of suggestions from OSC. The challenge, or one of the challenges in front of us, is how we respond to this government's ask to define what good looks like and submit this described full submission for that September deadline. It's probably important to emphasise that a full submission is not the same thing as a full business case, and it's not the same thing as a kind of full operating model for what the new councils look like. But it is expected to be quite detailed from those that exist in the public domain that have been submitted before. We're kind of talking hundreds of pages of detail that help demonstrate a robust set of assumptions and understanding. And the government, whilst they haven't mandated what that looks like, they have mandated that it talks to 6 key criteria that were set out from a ministerial letter in February. They're kind of summarised in the report and on the screen. And I guess an observation is that they cover quite a breadth of areas and are subject to a degree of interpretation. In terms of what the district council is doing with this, we have effectively taken the mandate from this full council meeting and the mandates received in the other districts, and continue to be working as a close team across the 6 districts in responding to this. Our approach in terms of developing a submission is that it is important that that submission needs to be built of 3 suitably independent and standalone visions for what 3 unitaries look like. It's not the kind of, it can't be just one submission and an identikit assumption about 3 unitaries. Each one will have to demonstrate how it can serve its local population, particularly, and how its services will be shaped to do that. But that will absolutely be wrapped up into a single joint submission. It will include an appropriate degree of detail to show what the operating model for the councils could look like, and it will absolutely have to focus to a large degree on answering key questions about the bigger spend areas for unitary authorities, so things like adult social care, children's, so that will be where a degree of scrutiny is being applied to this. A broad timetable, which just to kind of give members a feel for how things will develop and when they might expect to hear elements of this. So already in existence and continuing to be built is a core shared evidence base, and that has been developed with agreement and support of all the districts, but also Norfolk County Council. We are in the process of developing the kind of detailed service models and operating models at the moment, and that's likely to run through till August. That is a fairly significant undertaking and piece of work. Alongside this, though, another significant undertaking that has to be done right is public engagement. So members will probably be aware we have been running engagement through a web platform, but that will be growing as we move forward. I'll touch on that briefly, but it's an important part of this is how we can listen and understand what everyone is saying and what they would like the vision for local government to look like. With first drafts likely to be available of this work later in the summer. To kind of just briefly flag in terms of that engagement piece, I mentioned it's really important, and there are plans in place for how we engage key sections of society, key sectors, businesses, both at a regional level but also as a new unitary level. We've been working closely with towns and parishes. We held a session with them earlier this week, and we'll be continuing to do the same over the period through till this deadline. And one question that we perhaps wanted to tease out of this was how best to work with members. We are keen that this is collaborative, and we kind of draw in as much input as possible. So that's kind of my rapid canter through where we're at and where we have got to. If I pass back to you, Bill.
Thank you very much, Andrew. As you can see, there is a journey that it does develop as we go forward. So could I have the next slide, please? So what does this mean for our residents here in Breckland? The various different local government reorganisation models all have financial implications for our residents. And the first one is, I think, the one that in Breckland will be felt the most keenly, and that is council tax harmonisation. Because Breckland is the cheapest district council tax in Norfolk, under all of the proposals, the Breckland council tax will go up. In the meeting with the county briefing to members, Harvey Bullen, who's the financial director for Norfolk County Council, said that under the single county unitary, the Breckland bills would increase by 9% or £60 on a Band D property. That is because everybody would be expected in the new council to pay the same council tax. Those who live in the city of Norwich would see a reduction in their council tax because they currently are the highest council tax of all the district councils in Norfolk. So this isn't going to deliver any single increase in services. This is just going to be that we're going to be paying more for the overall delivery. This is going to be the case in all three of the options, and one of the things that the members of Breckland Council did in their council meeting was saying this is the status quo would be preferable to Breckland, because obviously there would be no increase. But this, we have to remember, is the government's policy, and they are saying that the status quo is not an option. So given the options available to us, we feel that the three will deliver the smallest increase to the Breckland residents, because Kingsley and West Norfolk and the bit of North Norfolk, their council taxes are on the whole lower than some of the others, in particular Great Yarmouth and the city, and therefore the increase would be smaller. There is also an issue, well, we'll get to debt. So the second D is council tax base. Obviously, the number of residents in an area and the commercial rates that are charged on businesses. In the two unitary model, Norwich would have to go either into the east or the west. And it's proposed on the whole that it would go into the east because the other councils are smaller. But that would give you one large and one small unitary, unless you split Norwich. The one would be far better off because it would get 60% of the income, as opposed to the other one with sort of 40% of the income. Debt. The government is asking the new councils to take off the cost of the debt and also all the costs of the changes. There is an amount of money available nationally for this change, and I think it's about £7 million, but that's to be shared between all 40 authorities, so it's not going to be a huge amount. We just need to look at where the debt is held. Currently, the largest debt is held with the largest council, which is Norfolk County Council, and that's about £800 million. And obviously that covers 1 million people. The districts on the whole cover around about 130,000 people each. Some are slightly smaller and some are slightly larger. And if you compare the debts that they all carry, they vary enormously. So, for example, here in Breckland, we have no debt. If you look at the other extreme, I believe in the City Council in Norwich, which is a council which is a very similar size to Breckland, their debt is around, as it's very difficult to get an accurate figure, £280 million. So you see very different approaches to debt across the different authorities. And obviously they've made their decisions. I'm not criticising any council, I'm just saying that's where they are. And some of them, like Great Yarmouth, I think it's about £80 million. So there are different levels of debt. And obviously, if we all go into one big council, the debt will be amalgamated. But if we were to go into different unitaries, then the debt would not be shared out equally. It would go with the previous authorities. Also, when one looks at it, Breckland is unique in Norfolk by raising more money from its commercial property portfolio than it does from its council tax. And obviously, the larger the council that income is spread across, the less the individual benefit remains with the Breckland residents. So if you have a very large council, then that is spread across 1 million people. But if you divide it into 3, then the benefit of that is divided between the smaller authority that holds the historic Breckland assets. I've talked a little bit about transition costs. If we could go over to the next slide, thank you, the wider risks to the model. There are some key issues that we have to be very aware of as we develop the three, and they are the lack of join up with other big structural changes. Health, as you may well know, is going through a local government reorganisation all of its own. So we did have pretty much the Norfolk Health and Wellbeing Board, which had a bit of Waveney in it. That's now being abolished and amalgamated with Suffolk. And we had the Integrated Care Partnership, which just Breckland had a seat on, and we had our own underneath that Health and Wellbeing Partnership in Breckland that was working with the health service in primary care and then underneath the democratic accountability of the Integrated Care Partnership for Norfolk. That will all change because the NHS is changing as well, and it's not clear how that's going to shake out. And I think what we need to be sure when we're building the new proposals, that we keep some of this local-based interaction with primary healthcare as being one of the key ambitions of the unitary here in the West. There is no solution, so long-term sustainability of public services. Part of the idea is that the more efficient that you make local government, which is obviously why Breckland has been focused on this for many years, which is why it doesn't have any debt and why it has a large investment portfolio, is how do we keep our services sustainable? And the answer to that is the new proposals will take cost out. It is proposed by everybody. However, it doesn't solve the local government model. So it does mean that all we are doing as a result of this reorganisation is pushing, or I use the phrase, kicking the can further down the road, because the reckoning will come. Because what's happened is that central government is setting the bar by which people are entitled to have services for local government. So local government can no longer limit the demand, but has capped the money that local government can raise. So if you have an unrestricted demand, but you have a restricted supply of money, there comes a point where you are overwhelmed. And that's where local government's been going, because since the 2012 Health and Care Act, people are entitled to receive social care from the top tier authorities, whether or not the top tier authority can afford it or not. Because before, the top tier authority could design the service to match their income. But with that disconnected now, the demand for social care, and I know for many years as the cabinet member for social care, adult social care at Norfolk County Council, is going up as the population ages, and the population aging is not a bad thing. It means people are living longer, and we should all be keen for that. But it does mean that the demand is continuing to rise, and the income is capped. So we have an issue there. So let's just, moving on, devolution or regionalisation. So what we're going to end up here under devolution is a strategic authority of 1.5 million, and under that, various unitary authorities across Norfolk and Suffolk. The government gave a figure of about 500,000, but we'll talk a little bit later about that is now not a target or even a guide anymore. They're just saying that it was an indicative figure, but it's not something that we should be held to. But we'll end up with a much larger authorities underneath. This was proposed by Tony Blair earlier on this century, and it was called regionalisation. And you remember there was talk about a regional assemblies across England, and the new government's talking about a committee of the nations and the regions. So they're moving back, but this time they're calling it devolution. And I think we should just take a moment to just consider what they mean by devolution. What they mean by devolution is directly elected mayors and large authorities. The guidance that's all come out of the government at the moment is talking about the powers coming up to the mayor, and they haven't actually articulated any powers that will be coming down from the Secretary of State to the mayor. One of the key proposals from the government is that strategic planning, which is currently done here by Breckland, will be going up to the mayor. Taxi licensing, which is currently done by Breckland, will be going up as well. At the moment, there is a degree of flux because but these are the sorts of things. They're talking about the leadership about over health within the area going up to the mayor. So that will be based on the Norfolk and Suffolk footprint instead of currently where it sits with Norfolk. So, and there is some talk, but we don't know exactly yet, that the fire services may be going up to the mayor as well, but that is less clear. So where are we on public support? At the moment, the overriding feedback that we're getting is that most people actually don't know enough about it. So the number of people saying that they want it and it's a good idea is quite limited. We have launched our own campaign to get the public involved at Future East, and you've all seen details of that. And where else we've seen unitaries established, they haven't, on the whole, prospered, and they certainly haven't delivered the savings that they've all said that they are going to produce. And we'll look briefly now, if you're joining, at Somerset, which was the most recent single county unitary that was established in 2023. That is already in financial problems, and they've asked the government for special measures. They've asked them for £80 million worth of money, and they've also got dispensation this year. This is their first full year as a budget as a unitary council to put their council tax up by 7.5%, which is above the 5% cap that we're subject to here in Norfolk. Why has that happened? It appears that merging lots of different authorities with different HR and different IT is more difficult than it looks, and also it's not a skill that the councils have held necessarily as part of doing their day job. And I think one of the issues that everybody's finding, that with 40 councils all going through LGR at the same time, those with those sorts of skills are very much in demand and spread very thinly over the area where everybody is supposed to be delivering similar change across lots of different organisations. So finding those with the skills is going to be very difficult. I think that it is going to be challenging moving forward. Anyway, if we go over the page, you're very pleased to see that that is the end of my talk, and we now like to very much put the meeting in your hands, members. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for allowing us to present.
Yes, thank you very much to both of you for your presentation. I was pleased to note, because a number of people have raised it with me, around in the government feedback about the population size could be under 500,000, because a number of people have said, how can you arrive at, to me, residents, how can you arrive at 3 unitaries if you're, diluting that population? The other thing I think I draw attention of the Commission members is section 4.5 of your paper, Bill, when you talk about the process of working extensively with members in shaping the plans and also public engagement, and you've said you welcome the Scrutiny Commission's view on how best to engage. So today won't be the only opportunity, but obviously if members have suggestions at this meeting or afterwards, to go back to yourself or other forums about how best to engage with the public in actually explaining what it means to them, and the different options, that will be very helpful. Thank you. I'm now going to throw this open to the members of the Commission and others. I know Gordon was very eager to get in at the beginning, so again, if we can relate it to the paper and the presentations that we've had, that would be great.
Thank you.
Kick off, Gordon.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I have attended other meetings, as you know, because I know you have attended them as well. And I actually have 4 questions from the presentation, 2 for Andrew and 2 for Bill, which to my mind appear to be new issues or slightly different issues from those given in other presentations. So if I can ask 4 separate questions, I would be grateful. If you want me to split them up, well, I'm happy to do it, so long as I can ask them within the time.
I think, Gordon, if you can do all your 4 questions, it may be the same have occurred to other people, so that'll probably be helpful.
Okay.
And if those are answered, we can move round to other members. Thank you.
Well, the first of the questions was from where I tried to jump in on Andrew earlier, whether Andrew could be very clear when the end of Breckland is likely. I have been told once or twice that it would be 2028. I have been told more recently by Bill, I should say, that he thought it would be 2027, but your paper indicated that we might still be in existence in 2028. Can you clarify that? They are all different questions.
So this is not a thing that we can be exact on because we do not know. Based on the timetable the government is indicating, it would be 2028, but it could be a year sooner. The earliest I think it could be would be 2027. 2028 is the kind of based on most publications, but that's not clear. And it would, to try and explain a little further, for that final year, it would be a process of the kind of winding down and transferring powers and responsibilities. There would, at that same point, it be a year where the new unitary council existed in shadow form, but the government have not nailed their colours to a mast on that. It could indeed be later.
Right, thank you. The second one is also to another of your slides, which it wasn't quite clear, is when we discuss and make proposals to the government about the type of unitaries we're looking at, basically the 1, 2, 3 that has been well discussed, I had understood that a minority view could be panelled to the government, but you seem to indicate that it couldn't, and I just wondered which of those situations was correct.
Yeah, certainly. Apologies if I didn't make that clear. So as it currently stands, the government is indicating it will take submissions from any council within, in our context, any district or upper tier authority can make a submission, whether with full support of everyone else or individually. So in Norfolk, there could be conceivably 8 separate submissions. The government have indicated that they would much rather there to be a single submission from every place, but they have recognised that that might not be possible. But as it stands, they will not be doing anything to rule in or out options ahead of that submission. That will be a decision that they will take after September, early new year, based on their parameters.
Thank you. Now, Chairman, I have 2 for Bill specifically. Bill, in your presentation, you mentioned, I believe I heard correctly, that Norwich City Council had debts of 280 million. In the papers before us, it clearly says a figure around 200 million, and I just wondered which of those is likely to be more correct. And I appreciate you said there was difficulties.
Well, in order to be on the safe side, I wouldn't want to suggest. I mean, my fault. I mean, if it is 200 million that is acknowledged, the figure that I had was from the Local Government Association of 280. So, I mean, it's connected with some of the investments that the City Council have made in commercial property, and some of them are called investments rather than debt. So it's a difficult one to unpick.
Sorry, a bit of further clarity as well. Just for simplicity, the paper refers to PWLB, so Public Works Loan Boards. That is not the only available source of debt that councils have, but it's an easy kind of ready reckoner and comparator. There are other debts that councils have on top of this, hence why you can have slightly different figures. But that's the published figure for just for Public Works Loan Board debt.
Thank you, Chairman. My last question, specific to them, and I'm not saying I won't put my hand up later on, is my concern about what you said about the amalgamation of health authorities and how they will come in, and in particular, the linking of the Norfolk and Waveney health authorities with those of Suffolk. I mean, we all know of the difficulties of some of the major hospitals in Suffolk, and the fact that they have amalgamated and indeed have the same management of hospitals in Essex, who also have had major difficulties in the past. So I'm wondering whether those 2 statements will be able to amalgamate into an effectively run health service for Norfolk when we may well have hospitals that are beholden to another authority outside of it, or will the Suffolk hospitals be separated from the Essex hospitals?
Thank you very much, Gordon. It's a good question. So currently, the ICB in Suffolk is Suffolk and North East Essex. So at the moment, they're talking about Norfolk and Waveney being merged with Suffolk and North East Essex. Whether there'll be a further tidy up of the boundaries, I don't know, but you're quite right. So the Suffolk trusts do work in Essex as well. But we await to hear that. I'm particularly sad, one, that they're having worked very hard to get some democratic accountability into the services that the NHS offers the population here in Norfolk, and that decisions aren't all taken in Cambridge, which is where the regional NHS England sit. I was very disappointed to hear that the Norfolk leadership had been basically removed. We'd worked very hard as a system to get leaders involved who weren't just from an NHS perspective, because we were aware that the NHS in embracing prevention isn't about you present when you're ill and they make you better, but it's how we get the population better and how we work to keep the population more healthy and therefore reduce the cost and also have people have better outcomes because they live healthier lives. And we spent a lot of time persuading the NHS to let us help recruit the chair of the system, which was Dame Patricia Hewitt, who's not with an NHS background, though she had been Secretary of State for Health underneath the last Labour government, but was a great advocate for democratic accountability, and we pushed very hard to bring her into the system. We also then brought in Tracy Bleakley as the Chief Executive of the Integrated Care Board. Again, her background was outside of the NHS. She'd ran the hospice movement for the whole of the UK. Prior to that, she had other jobs in the private sector. And the leadership of the ICP, which was myself, we were really trying, which was, again, a non-NHS based person, trying to get consensus where it's about the people who live in an area and what they need rather than what we have, what the NHS could do. Tracy Bleakley and Patricia Hewitt have been, Patricia Hewitt's retired and they're not recruiting externally for her replacement, and Tracy Bleakley has stepped down and taken another role elsewhere, and the system is now in being people who have a very extensive NHS background have all been installed without any consultation with the authorities here in Norfolk to run the new system, and I think that that is a great shame. So yes, I think there will be issues. We're not being consulted on the future geography of health and how it's going to interact with local government. So I think there is a lot to do because we risk losing a lot of the work that we've been doing since 2017.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gordon. Yes, we will come back to you later on if you have your hand up again. I'm sure you will. The next hand up I saw was Councillor Turner. Linda.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a question about council tax. So when myself and my colleague have been talking to our parishes within our ward about this whole happening, the one thing they do grasp is that their council tax will go up. Although obviously we haven't been able to put any figures on. We've talked about the harmonisation. We've tried to put it in without being patronising, simple English, so that the average man in the street understands what's happening. But can you confirm whether the mayor, who is entitled to raise their own precept, if I'm right, is that included in this predictive figure or is that separate?
No, the figures are just for the local government reorganisation. They're not for devolution. So there are proposals around how the mayor will be funded. There is no money from central government to run the office or strategic authority of the mayor. and we await to see what the spending review will be in June to see whether there will be any monies specifically for the devolution project, because so far there have been none. And it's worth remembering that the government cancelled the previous devolution project that was going ahead on the grounds that it was unaffordable, and there was money offered as part of that. So I'm assuming that if that is unaffordable, then the new devolution proposals will be less generous than the previous ones, but we don't know what that is. So there's two ways to fund the office of the mayor. One is when the mayor wins money for investment, he top slices that investment money and uses some of the money that's been given for a new road, and he uses some of that money to run the mayor's office, which is one option. And there are others where they've agreed that all of the money that they raise for a project will go to the project, and they will raise a separate mayoral precept to run the new strategic authority. And obviously there's more. That seems to be the favoured one because there is more consistency, and they're going to be doing other big jobs, like, for example, spatial strategic planning and stuff, and they're going to be doing that whether they win or not other bids. But I think it's too early to say. We need to see if there is any money in the spending review in June. What I have to say, and the question was asked even only yesterday with the Department of MHCLG, which I was at, that there are no promises of money. Nobody's saying there will be money coming. They're saying you will have to wait to June to see if there is any money coming. So it's not being trailed, but maybe it's a position of under promise, over deliver. I don't know.
Thank you, Linda. Any further questions from members? Councillor Kyberd, Robert.
Thank you, Chairman. Bill, there are currently 3 joint committees between the districts and the county, which are the Joint Museums Committee, the Norfolk Records Committee, and the Norfolk Health Scrutiny Committee. Those, particularly the first 2, have a strong Norfolk overall identity and would suffer from being fractionated. So what would, because they've had a very successful history of joint working, do you anticipate joint working between 2 or 3 unitaries to enable their continuation?
I think that's an excellent question, because one of the big issues going forwards is that there are some things done on a pan-Norfolk base. For example, children's services, adult services, and highways. And if you chop them into small pieces, do you lose some of the advantages of joint commissioning? And do you lose the skills? Do the people who currently do those jobs go off and do big jobs elsewhere, and you lose the experience? So one of the things that we're looking at as part of the 3 is how we can do joint working across the 3 unitaries in Norfolk in order to protect some of that strategic commissioning and work. So whilst the government is being very unprescriptive, we are proposing as the 3 to work up a way where we could come up with some sort of solution where we only had, for example, 1 director of adult social care, but maybe had 3 different offerings across the 3 different unitaries, depending on what the members of each of those unitaries would like delivered under the overall umbrella. And I would suggest that your points about the Records and Museums Committee are very well made, because if there is a will amongst the committee, amongst the 3 unitaries to continue to work in that way, and it make it much simpler, because currently I think there are 8 partners in both of those, and they would just be going down to 3, but it would still work on the same partnership basis. And that's something that I'll make sure that we take away as Breckland as part of the proposal, so that it doesn't get missed or forgotten.
I mean, certainly Steve Miller, who's the Director of Cultural Services, is very keen that that single organisation continues, because it very much underpins the 6 million a year core funding we get from Arts Council England, and smaller units might lose the entire amount.
Thank you. It's a good thing to know. We'll make that point and take it away. But you know, there's no dogma here. You know, it would be stupid to break something that would leave us all worse off. So it may not be known by all of our partners, but we'll make sure that it is.
Thank you, Robert. Councillor Land, Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a bit of a fan of the three-unitary model, so I'm going to stand up and say that. And that's based on asking the very simple premise: is the current system working for residents? My anecdotal evidence is that it's not, that residents are confused, they don't understand the difference between councils, and they don't understand the different responsibilities. I think moving to a unitary model may help to clear that up. I won't say it will do entirely, but I think it's a move in the right direction. I think it would give greater accountability, which we all like. I think it would also, under economy of scale, it would also prevent certain waste, which I'm sure we're all in favour of here. My real concern, I think, is I'm very pleased that Breckland, along with all but one other councillor, are pushing for a three-unitary model. My concern is the attitude of Norfolk County Council, who are not only saddling us with, I think you said £800 million debt, nearly £1 billion of debt. They don't seem to really know where they are on this, what they want, or where they're going. There seems to be no consensus there. And my concern is that their voice will prevail, whereas a number of district councils, the vast majority of district councils, are united in their approach. I think it would be nice if Norfolk County Council stopped messing about and actually engaged with the issue and accepted the reality of the situation and moved forward on this. So I haven't really got a question, it's more of a statement, so I hope that's sufficient for you.
Well, I'm sure members have heard that, as has Councillor Borrett. And I'm aware, like other members are, that Norfolk County Council is already undertaking engagement sessions, obviously a slightly different view from ourselves. As members will know, the County Council, which I don't hold a brief for, has already made their submission based on what their scrutiny committee saw at the county, and it will be up to them to do their final submission. And as far as there is any future collaboration between now and the final submissions between the different councils, between Norfolk and Suffolk, and between the counties and the district, that will be up to the people that Bill described in the list there. But I'm sure your comments have been noted, Terry. If you've got any further thoughts or comments, then today or afterwards, please speak up. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to make a point, and then I have two questions for Councillor Borrett. So the first one is, I agree with what Councillor Land said regarding Norfolk County Council. I'm on record as saying that it's a complete disaster financially. A lot of this has come about from the Lansley reforms from the Conservative government in 2012, I think it was. And I'm really not that sad that we're trying to shake up the health partnerships around Norfolk, because if they were that good since 2017, why did my residents continually moan about the fact that they're in the 8 a.m. rush to try and get doctors? Nobody thinks that the GP primary care is working very well. Social care is on its knees, and something needs to change. So I very much welcome this. It's just sad that whatever we do with this, we're going to be saddled with the new authorities, going to be saddled with the huge debt that Norfolk County Council's managed to rack up. But I'm told that that's not 800 million, that's more likely $1 billion. But again, figures vary and recollections vary. On my questions, I assume in all this the Police Crime Commissioner position is going to be abolished, and that's going to be taken under direct control of the elected mayor. In which case, have we taken account of how that will affect the council tax? And the other thing I really want to know is, when are we going to get to a stage when we have an unvarnished impact assessment? Because I'm getting the vibe at the moment that certain people think this is a disaster for Breckland and Breckland residents, but there must be some positives in this as well. And I think what we need to make sure that we give our residents all of the facts, not just the ones that we want to impart to them. So there will be positives, there will be negatives in this, and we must get to a stage, I would suggest, if you're looking to do a submission for September, there needs to be a truthful impact assessment that us as councillors can all review, and that information can be imparted to the public. So could I ask when I can expect to see that, please?
Thank you very much, Councillor Atwell. There's a few things there that I might pick up. I'll start with the Police and Crime Commissioner. The status of the Police and Crime Commissioners has not been confirmed by the government. So the answer to that is we don't know, and they don't know when they're going to tell us. So that's not terribly helpful. The issue of if health was so good, why are people still struggling to contact their GPs between 2017 and now? Well, there's two things. One, it was COVID, and the second is just because we're here now doesn't mean we wouldn't have been in a much worse position if we hadn't been moving forward. So the trouble with working with the NHS, and somebody said it's a bit like being in bed with an elephant. You really have to watch yourself. It's such an enormous organisation. You can think you're winning the argument, and it rolls over and you just get squashed. Because getting a national organisation, which the size of that, to change how it works is very difficult indeed. And I think it all is key to relationships. And we've built up some great relationships about people who are beginning to trust each other across the divide between the NHS, and they have now gone. So I don't know what the future holds. I hope on behalf of the people of Norfolk that it's a really sunny and successful one, but I worry about that. An impact assessment. Well, we've got no choice. We have to do this, and we don't know what the government's criteria. We haven't designed it yet because the government only announced it and wanted indications of interest in March, and they're going to make their final decision in September. The members of Breckland Council very clearly gave us a steer. They said, we want the three, go away and make the three work. So we're doing that. So we're not looking at whether the two would be better or the one or not, because that's not what we were instructed to do. However, we can benchmark it quite easily against the status quo, which is not going to happen because it's not allowed. And we know that it'll cause more disruption. It will dilute the assets that the Breckland residents have built up over many years, and it will reduce their ability to benefit from them. So there are some disincentives which are very difficult off the top. I am concerned about the reorganisation because if we were able to see other unitary authorities elsewhere where they had delivered great savings as a result of the process, then we could say, what did they do well? But we haven't seen that. So from early unitaries like Northumberland through to unitaries like Cornwall and Wiltshire, and then latterly at Somerset, we haven't seen unitaries delivering services with a lower council tax than the two-tier areas that we currently are in. And in fact, the two authorities with the highest council tax in the country are both unitaries. One is a city unitary based in Nottingham, and one is a rural unitary based in Rutland. So it's not even the type of area that they represent. But those are the two areas with the highest council tax. So, if unitaries were so efficient, then I would expect to see them delivering services at less cost to their residents, and we haven't seen that. Now, if you know, and I'm all for the evidence on this, because what we're doing now is we're looking about to see where people have been successful, because if somebody's done something already and it's working really well, why would we reinvent the wheel? Why don't we just take what they've been through and use that? So, and I have to say, members, you're part of this. If you know of any areas that you think that we should be talking to, then we will follow you. And I think, Mr. Chairman, with your, we are keen that the members feel empowered by this process. So the question that was on there that you did refer to when we finished our seek is, what would the members like to see us do in order to feel that you're part of this process and that you own it, so that when we get to September, we have something that the members feel that they fully endorse, they fully support, and they'd be pleased to support across the piece. I am disappointed that the County Council has not agreed to work with us. I did suggest at the members' working group in the County Council, which I did attend, as not as a member of the group, but as a member of the council, that we do a joint consultation, and that was not agreed, because I'd have thought it would be much easier for the public if we had just one consultation between the two. But that was not something that the working group at the County Council was happy to do. So I hope that answers all your questions.
So, just to clarify then, what the government can expect is 3 separate impact assessments. So there'll be one from county, one from whatever South Norfolk want to do. Perhaps they need to give their heads a wobble, to be honest. And then there'll be an impact assessment, a big joint impact assessment from the 3 authorities who are working together to form a partnership in the West, or will that just be an impact assessment done by officers in this council, and Kings Lynn will have a separate one and North Norfolk will have a separate one? I would have thought you would have needed a unified front.
Yeah, certainly. So I think if not confusing terminology, so what the governor asked for is a full submission, which I think is very similar to what you're describing as that impact assessment. On current trajectory, they will receive 1 from the 6 districts that will be shared and co-developed by all of us. That will be.
But that's not an impact assessment in the how it's used and other decisions, though, is it? Because I'm not sure that there is such a thing as an impact assessment going to be made. There's going to be a submission, a proposal about what we'd recommend.
Yeah, I worry perhaps we're getting confused with terminology.
I would have assumed if you're going to do a submission to the government, and I very much welcome the potential 3 unitary model, I would say if you're going to do a submission to the government, the 3 councils that are working together on that assessment would produce a piece of work that you can jointly say to all of the residents that that's going to affect across West Norfolk, right, this is the work we've done, this is what we think the joint impact's going to be, these are what we think the perceived benefits are going to be, and there will be challenges, there will be, you know, for and against on some of these things, but I would have expected you'd do that work in order to get to consult with the public, to then take that forward to the government, and that then gives you really good solid ground on which to say we have consulted on what we consider to be the area that that's going to affect. If you're just going to do something in Breckland and then Kings Lynn and West Norfolk are going to do something and you're all doing different things for your residents, I don't think that's really cohesive, and that's the bit I was really looking for.
Okay, I think we're getting tangled up with the language, because you're using a terminology that we're not using from here, but I think we're all getting to the same place. So I cannot speak for what the County Council is doing and whether they will or will not do whatever they're going to do, and I cannot speak for South Norfolk about whether they are or not, and so I can't say what the total number is. But what I can say is that the proposals for the 3 will have the support of the other 6 district councils, will be one proposal, and there will be work done in each of the 3 unitaries, first of all to establish where the boundaries are going to be, because they will need to be part of the submission. And once those are agreed amongst the people making, the 6 councillors making the system, then will be further work. And we're already talking to Kingsland and West Norfolk Council because, quite frankly, this you can never start too early. So we will have under the umbrella of the 3 unitaries, we will have a series of proposals for the Western unitary, right down to where we think the boundary should be. One of the questions I have been asked many times is, where will it be based? And the answer to that is, I don't know, because that decision will be taken by the members of the new authority. So we won't be able to decide that on their behalf. But what we can say is, these are the way, this is how we think the unitary will work. These are the benefits that we propose and the structures we propose. 2017, in 2027, God, we're already 2027. In 2027, we will have elections to the shadow authority, which will be effectively, if the government has said to go ahead, the new West Norfolk unitary. It won't exist legally yet, but they will then, those members of the shadow authority, those people elected in 2027, will start to shape those sorts of other questions, so that when the new unitary becomes legally the successor to Breckland, which may be at the end of 2027 or it may be in 2028, or if things are going very slowly, early 2029, I don't know, then they will, before they actually become the new unitary. So that's the process that we're going through. I hope that's helpful.
I've got 3 more questions now, but thank you for your clarification so far. So you've mentioned you're in discussion with Kingsland and West Norfolk. Are you in those discussions with North Norfolk? Because there was, for clarity, is the proposal that all of North Norfolk will be part of the West or part of North Norfolk? Because that makes it, if it's part, that makes it more difficult for North Norfolk to do calculations and help you, because that's sort of half of their current model. So that's one thing.
Well, should we just pick that up?
Yep.
Right. So it is highly likely that if there was 3 unitaries, the entirety of Breckland and the entirety of Kingsland and West Norfolk would be in the Western unitary. What is not so clear is the status of North Norfolk. So there are discussions in North Norfolk because some of East North Norfolk are kin to the East, and some of West North Norfolk think that they have more in favour of the West. So I don't think it is for me to say where North Norfolk will go. I think there is a decision to be made by the members of North Norfolk as part of the process in the 3 unitaries to decide what the future of North Norfolk is. So yes, we are working closely with North Norfolk, and I meet with the leader of North Norfolk on a weekly basis at the moment. That's Councillor Tim Adams. But I wouldn't want to be saying what the solution for North Norfolk would be. I think that would be for Tim.
So based on that, North Norfolk really need to get a wriggle on and make a decision, don't they? Because this timetable's really tight. I appreciate that's not a decision that Breckland can make, but if you're putting forward a Western unitary authority based on combining 3 existing authorities, that is going to be key, and that is going to affect all of the figures, the impact, etc. So I hope that they will get on with that fairly quickly. The other question I had is around, so okay, you don't know at the moment whether all of North Norfolk's going to be in or not. So when will we have some kind of sense on new boundaries for wards for this proposed unitary? Because again, unless you've got that, you can't really ascertain with any accuracy, I would suggest, cost. Obviously, how many ward members would there be? Are you proposing something that would keep all of the current Breckland model, or just the county councillors for those areas? So that is something that really does need to be thrashed out. And finally, my final question is regarding the Norfolk County Council elections, which were postponed this year. I'm hearing rumours that they may be possibly postponed next year. I've heard that from another county councillor. Can you clarify whether they are absolutely going to go to the people to vote next May 2026, or is that going to be postponed again? Because I really do not think the people of Norfolk are going to wear it if we go back to them and say, or county council go back and say, really sorry, we're not going to hold an election again for another year. The democratic deficit there just will not hold water. So have you got any clarity? You may not have the answer, Bill, but if you've got any clarity or information on that, I'd be grateful.
Right, so from the top, North Norfolk to get a rigger room. I wouldn't want to be saying to North Norfolk they're being anything other than excellent partners. I'm sure that they have it in hand, and I wouldn't want them to think that I was sitting passing comment on what they were doing, because we have managed to get consensus cross-party between an independent run council, Conservative-run council, a Labour-run council and a Liberal Democrat-run council, and one with no overall control. So I think the very fact that we've all been able to work together in a really consensual way to deliver a vision for Norfolk, I think would suggest that everybody is very committed, and I am sure that North Norfolk will produce in a timely way what's required. The new boundaries, that work is just beginning. We have a deadline of September when the government wants to see it. So what I can say is sometime between now and September, it will be delivered. I don't have a timetable on that. It is early days. I think if you were to ask us this in a month's time, when we have a month's work under our, then some of these timelines will be much clearer. But the more work that we've done, then the more we can commit to saying these things will be done on certain dates. The issue of the Norfolk County Council elections, well, they were postponed for a year. So at the current status is they will be happening next year. As to whether they're going to be postponed for another year, that's a question for Sir Keir Starmer, because that is the Prime Minister's decision. It's not a decision made here in Norfolk. So all I would say is that if he is going to postpone them for a further year, he will have to take steps, proactive steps, to postpone them. And if he does nothing, they will take place next May.
Thank you very much, Roger. Thank you, Bill. I know Gordon wants to have another go, but I'm keen for any other members who haven't yet had their hands up. So if I could go to Councillor Plummer first, then we'll go Linda Turner, and then back to Gordon. Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is for Bill. I might have lost, I don't know if I've lost the train of thought here at the moment. If we have county council elections next May, will there be 84 county councillors, or will we have to have more county councillors to cover the areas round? Then if we do have them, I heard you say about a shadow count. Will those same councillors be on the shadow, or have we got to have another lot of elections for the shadow? If you don't.
So, if nothing happens, next May, the current, the County Council will go out for another set of elections on the boundaries that aren't the current boundaries, but the boundaries that they were going to go out for had they gone ahead this May. And that's 84 members, but the boundaries are different. So basically it would be a run of the elections that were due to happen this May, but then were postponed for 1 year. And they would then run on until the end of Norfolk County Council. The following May, it is proposed, so this is May 2027, there would be elections to the shadow authorities. So if the government has listened to us, which I'm sure they will, and said, you're quite right, we will have 3 unitaries in Norfolk along the boundaries which you propose, then the shadow elections would happen to those 3 new authorities in May 2027. And we don't know what the boundaries of those would be yet, because the government would have to, one, accept that they're going to be 3 unitaries, and there would then have to be some work from the Boundary Commission on what they propose the representation of those unitaries would be like. And as I say, that again is above our pay grade. Once the shadow, so we'll still be sitting as Breckland councillors at that stage. Once up until the shadow elections and the county, then what would happen is there'd be a transfer of power from the old councils to the new councils, so the shadow authority. And then when that was sufficiently robust, i.e. it had a chief executive, or they had chief executives, and they, so they could function, they would then become the legal entity, and all the existing councils would then cease to exist. This is entirely separate from the mayor and the strategic authority, and they're not bound up in the mayoral thing. And just on the issue of the mayor, the county councils, Norfolk and Suffolk County Council, this autumn have to vote that they want a mayor. So the mayor won't be confirmed until Norfolk and Suffolk County Council have voted that they want a mayor, and they have done that this autumn. And that is the reason why the elections were postponed for a year, because the government needs the agreement of the current top-tier authorities in order to impose a mayor. And that's because they're using the existing legislation that was passed under the previous Conservative government that said you only got a mayor if you wanted one. Now, they could, in the future, and they are saying they're minded to do this, change the law so they can say you're going to have a mayor, but they've got to go through Parliament and have an Act of Parliament to do that. And their legislative timetable is very busy at the moment, so that they're not. So, and also, if Norfolk votes for a mayor but Suffolk votes against it, it doesn't happen, and vice versa. And that's why the elections were only extended for 1 year. Now, the government might, who knows, extend them for another year, but they haven't said that they will, and they could have extended it for 2, and there would be no practicable reason why they would extend it for a further year, because actually they don't gain anything, because it's this vote this autumn that is the key thing that they want delivered.
Thank you, Bill. Linda.
Thank you, Chairman. Contracts. So if we went for the 3 authority, which I support, that makes sense to me because we already work with contracts with King's Lynn and West Norfolk, like, say, Serco, for instance, and we know what the dead end line is for that. If we went to a smaller number of authorities, 1 or 2, you're going to have people coming in with all sorts of different contracts, all ending and starting at different times. Do they all have to run their course until they're all done to sit under the one arching, which is going to cost a lot of money? Or as part of the debt sorting out, will some of the contracts have to be bought out so that, say, unitary number 2 can all have the same contract for waste or whatever it is they need? Does it make sense?
It's a good question.
Okay.
It's a very good question, and it is germane to how it's all going to happen. So the answer is that all the contracts will be honoured by the existing authorities have entered into will need to be honoured by all the new authorities. And then it's a question of unpicking them, and that is why it's so very difficult to do, because, as you say, they're for different levels of service, they have different start and finish dates, they cost different amounts, and they have different teams running each of these different contracts. So the answer then is it all has to be negotiated. So some of them may be too expensive to be got out, we'll have to run to the end. Some, the supplier might have a contract over here and a contract over here and think that actually by agreeing to finish the contract early and going to a different contract that they might agree to do that, and some may not. But every single contract is going to have to be unpicked on its merits, whatever. And that is part of the challenge, is that that has proved insurmountable, for example, in Somerset, as a result. So yes, it is an enormous piece of work, and we're talking about everything from social care through to when your bins are collected and, you know, what your dog warden service should be like, to, you know, who are the Swift service where they put people back in their bed when they've fallen out of bed in the middle of the night. So it will be, and through to HR and IT and all of the other things that drive how the councils work.
Thank you, Bill. As you know, I spent a week in Somerset down at a family event and did a lot of research amongst my family and so on. And just to emphasise the point you've made, so when various bits came together and all these contracts had to run their course, so for years there was no similarity, even within one bit of the unitary authority. They're all having to do their own bits, so it takes years to actually reach that point when everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet. And my cousins proved financially what it meant for the people down there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. Back to Gordon again. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one this time for Bill. I didn't know whether I could ask this because it might be considered a rhetorical question, but it's not entirely rhetorical, because if our county council are doing what they should be doing, there's someone in County Hall listening to this as we speak, and therefore they might be able to send an answer if Bill can't give me one, and I don't know whether he can. My question really is, if this unitary system is as poor as you say it is, and my own personal research matches what you told me, but yours was somewhat more detailed, why were Norfolk so keen to be part of the fast track system that's led us into this, what I would consider to be a muddle? Thank you.
Well, I think that's a question where you have to look into the minds of others, and I'm not equipped to do that, but it's not my personal opinion, but it was the opinions of others, and I think it's in the public realm who voted to be in the fast track system, and it was interesting that the leaders of all of the groups at County Council voted, so I think each political party can go and speak to their respective leader in the Norfolk County Council and ask them why they did.
Thank you very much, Gordon. Thank you, Bill. Any further questions or comments from members at the moment? No? Stunned silence. I've got a couple of questions. One is between now, obviously you've got a lot of work to do between now and September, and thinking about us as members, because members will be faced with people responding both to Breckland's consultation and the county consultation. In terms of us as Breckland members, when might we expect any additional sort of information of flesh on the bones? I know it's a bit difficult before the final submission. So over between now and, you know, May, June, July, August, would we be expecting anything further coming out, or and perhaps you could talk a bit more about the, you know, the engagement process and any road shows and things you're doing, because that's the question people will be asking us. We appreciate there's going to be there are more known unknowns than there are knowns at the moment, to quote a previous US General. Thank you, Bill.
Good to see Donald Rumsfeld's quote still going there. It's a very useful one. Yes, so the answer to that is I would engage in all of the consultations as much as you can as members, because it sounds to me that there are firm opinions around the table, so I don't think it would hurt at all for anybody to engage with any of the consultations and share how you feel, and especially, you know, if as members, how your residents feel about this going forward. In terms of how do we keep members involved, we will endeavour to do that. I mean, I'm very keen to hear that if you want us to come back, then we'll be very happy to come back. If you'd like more workshops for members on how we're getting on, we're very happy to do that. We are doing town and parish engagement. We can do more of that if you want more of that. And also, I will say, if you would like to hear less from us as well, that is also an option too. So I would say that you don't have to hear more of us. So and you don't have to have your say today about that. You can feed back to me and to Andrew, who is the lead officer on all of this. And both of our emails are in the thing, and we'll both pick up the phone to any member who has an opinion on something that they would like to have.
Thank you very much. I'm sure members here today and other members of people watching, we're very pleased to hear that we can make approaches to your good self and your colleagues at any other time and get more information and ask for further workshops. Obviously, you'll be in a position of knowing more than us. You know, I've got my own particular interests, concerns around disaggregation of services. Are we going to, for example, say, if we have a 3-unitary, do we have one have a service level agreement with one, so nothing actually gets broken up? You have local subunits. I'm sure local members, but also residents, were thinking, what does this mean for me? Where will I go, you know, to watch meetings? What will happen on the ground? Will anything change with my, you know, my bin dates? What people want to know is, you know, have we got value for money? What are the services I'm getting for it? And to quote the late Tony Benn, you know, to whom are you accountable and how do we get rid of you? Not you personally, Bill. So one of the other questions I've got is, I read the original interim submission which Deloitte's had produced, and were you going to be using them or somebody similar in terms of going forward to look across the whole district? Because it isn't something you can just put on the shoulders of Andrew Holdsworth here alone, though good though he is, I'm sure. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Andrew has very broad shoulders, I could assure you, but we're not proposing that it should all sit on his shoulders alone. We're in the process with our 5 partners in procuring a set of consultants to aid us with this job, and I can't tell you who they're going to be because the procurement hasn't finished yet. But under the procurement rules, it's taking far longer to do than I would have liked. Because I would have hoped that we would have been able to do that. But we are bound by the law of the land, and that's how long it takes. So I would hope that we'll be able to make an announcement on who we've successfully procured in the very near future.
Thank you very much, Bill. Before we wrap up, any further comments or questions from members? Well, can I first just thank members for coming along this afternoon, which we kept this as late in the calendar as we could to get any further information. And I'm sure the leader and yourself, Councillor Borwick, will be making any updates to full council as and when things occur. And I hope members will take up the opportunity to engage with any workshops in the towns and parishes. With that, I will close the meeting, but remind members that the next ordinary meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Commission is Thursday, the 5th of June at our usual time at 10 AM. And just thank members for attending and wish you a pleasant weekend. Thank you.